Learn to keep your mouth shut. The Stoic art of silence and power. There is a skill so rare, so powerful, so completely misunderstood in the modern world that the few people who master it become almost untouchable. It is not a skill you can buy. It is not a skill any school teaches you. In fact, everything around you, social media, television, the culture of opinions and hot takes and constant self-expression is actively working against you developing it. This skill is silence. Not the silence of someone who has nothing to say, not the silence of fear or social anxiety, but the deliberate, disciplined, strategic silence of someone who has learned that the mouth is one of the most dangerous weapons a person can carry, and that the wisest thing you can do, most of the time, is leave it holstered. The Stoics knew this. They built entire philosophies around it, and the men and women who practiced it, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, Cato, became some of the most respected, most powerful, most enduring figures in all of human history. Today, we are going to go deep. We are going to explore why silence is a Stoic virtue, how your words are costing you more than you realize, and exactly how to build the discipline of keeping your mouth shut, in arguments, in relationships, at work, on social media, and in the quiet moments of your own mind. This is going to be a long one. Get comfortable, because this might be the most important thing you watch this year. The Stoic Foundation of Silence. Let us begin at the beginning. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, said something so simple and so devastating that it has echoed through 25 centuries of human thought. He said we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we should use them in that proportion. Read that again. 2 ears, 1 mouth. Use them in proportion. He was not being poetic. He was being precise. He was describing a ratio, a discipline, a way of moving through the world that places listening above speaking, understanding above expressing, wisdom above the desperate need to be heard. And yet look around you. Look at the world we live in. Every platform rewards the loudest voice. Every algorithm amplifies outrage. Every social gathering seems to be a competition for who can fill the most airspace. People interrupt each other constantly. People formulate their response while the other person is still talking. People confuse volume with value and frequency with intelligence. The Stoics would look at this world and see a civilization of people who have completely lost control of one of their most fundamental faculties. And they would not judge. They would simply say, "This is an opportunity." In a world of noise, the quiet person becomes extraordinary. Why your words are costing you more than you realize. Before we talk about how to be silent, we need to talk about why silence matters, because most people do not fully understand what their words are doing to them. Every time you speak, you reveal yourself. This is not a metaphor. This is literal. Your words expose your values, your fears, your insecurities, your level of knowledge, your emotional state, your intentions, your character. Every sentence is a window into who you are. When you speak wisely and sparingly, people see a person of depth and substance. When you speak carelessly, compulsively, or reactively, people see someone who has not yet mastered themselves. Seneca wrote extensively about this.
He said that we suffer more in imagination than in reality, and the same is true of speech. We say far more than we need to, and most of what we say we immediately regret. We talk in circles. We repeat ourselves. We fill silence with noise because silence feels uncomfortable, and our discomfort with silence is itself a sign of inner disorder. Think about arguments you have had in your life, the ones you look back on with the most regret. Were they the times you said too little or too much? Almost universally, it is the times you said too much. The words that came out in anger. The private information you shared because the moment felt right. The opinions you voiced that cost you a friendship, a job, a relationship. The promises you made carelessly and could not keep. Your mouth has been your own worst enemy, and you know it. Everyone knows it. We just rarely talk about it, which is ironic given the problem. There's also something else that most people do not consider. When you speak less, you think more. The internal monologue slows down. You start to notice things. Details in a conversation that you would have missed while waiting for your turn to talk. Patterns in other people's behavior. Your own reactive impulses rising up before you act on them. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is attention. And attention is one of the rarest and most valuable things a human being can offer. The Stoics had a word for the practice of inner attention. They called it prosoche. It translates roughly as self-attention, or watchfulness over the self. It was considered one of the most fundamental Stoic disciplines. Before you could govern your actions, before you could regulate your emotions, before you could live according to reason and virtue, you had to first learn to watch yourself, to become an observer of your own mind. And here's what that practice reveals almost immediately. Most of what we say does not need to be said. Most speech is filler. It is noise generated by anxiety, by boredom, by the social pressure to perform, by the ego's constant need to be seen and validated. We talk about other people's business when we have no business doing so. We give advice that was not asked for. We share opinions on things we have not thought through. We explain ourselves when no explanation is required. We justify, we defend, we qualify, we overshare. The Stoic practice of prosoche asks you to bring a quality of witnessing to all of this, not to judge yourself harshly, but to see clearly, to watch the impulse to speak arise and ask, is this necessary? Is this true? Is this kind? Is this the right moment? Does this serve anyone, or am I just relieving an internal pressure?
Marcus Aurelius practiced this his entire adult life. His private journals, the Meditations, are full of reminders to himself to stay inward, to not be distracted by the noise of the court, to return again and again to his own character and intentions. He was a man surrounded by flatterers and advisers and petitioners and enemies, all demanding his words, his attention, his reaction, and he spent his entire reign practicing the discipline of not being pulled out of himself by any of it. He was not cold. He was not distant. He was precise. He was deliberate. He spoke when speech was required, and he held his counsel when it was not. And people who were in his presence reported feeling the weight of his attention in a way that few other people could produce. That is the effect of prosoche. That is what real silence does to the quality of your presence. Let us now talk about one of the most practical applications of this teaching: arguments. Arguments are where the mouth does its most damage, and they are also where the discipline of silence is hardest to maintain, because conflict triggers the nervous system in ways that bypass reason entirely. The amygdala fires, cortisol floods the body, the voice gets louder, words come out that were never reviewed, never chosen, never measured against your values. And afterward, you feel worse, not better, because winning an argument almost never produces the satisfaction you thought it would, and losing one, while saying things you regret, produces a damage that lingers for years. The Stoics had a very specific teaching about this. They said that you cannot control what other people say to you. You cannot control whether someone is rude, unfair, provocative, or wrong. What you can control, the only thing you can ever control, is your response. Epictetus, who was enslaved for the first part of his life and endured cruelties that most of us cannot imagine, said that his master could beat his body, but could not touch his mind.
could not force him to react with hatred or desperation or loss of dignity. That inner citadel, the place where his character lived, was his alone. Now apply that to a heated argument with a partner, a coworker, a stranger on the internet. Someone says something that triggers you. You feel the heat rise. You feel the words forming. You feel the absolute certainty that you are right and they are wrong, and the world needs to know it immediately. That is the moment. That is the exact moment where the Stoic practice lives or dies. The practice is this. Pause. Just pause. Let one breath pass. Let the wave of reactivity crest and begin to fall. And then ask yourself, if I say nothing right now, what happens? Usually the answer is nothing bad. The silence passes. The other person talks more and often reveals more. You gather information. You maintain your composure. You keep your dignity. You do not say something you will spend the next week trying to unsay. And often, your silence communicates more powerfully than any argument you could have made. Silence in response to provocation says, you do not have the power to destabilize me. It says, I am not playing this game. It says, I am steady, and you are not, and we both know it. Cato the Younger was famous for this.
He was one of the most principled and least corruptible politicians in Roman history, surrounded by people who were constantly trying to provoke him, manipulate him, pull him into feuds that would compromise his reputation. His consistent response was an almost inhuman stillness. Not silence born of weakness, silence born of absolute confidence in his own character. He knew who he was. He did not need to prove it in every conversation. People tried to bait him for decades. They almost never succeeded. And his reputation outlasted all of them by 2,000 years. The silence of social media and the digital world. Now let us bring this teaching into the world you actually live in. Because the Stoics never had to deal with Twitter. They never had to deal with comment sections, group chats, viral outrage cycles, or the extraordinary temptation to put your unfiltered thoughts in front of thousands of strangers at 3 a.m. But if they had, they would have recognized the problem immediately. Because it is the same problem they were always writing about, just faster, just louder, just with a much larger audience for your worst moments. Think about what social media actually rewards. It rewards speed, the first take, the hot reaction, the sharp, cutting response. It rewards volume. The more you post, the more you exist. It rewards outrage. Nothing travels faster online than anger. Every single one of these incentives is the opposite of Stoic wisdom. Every single one of them is pulling you toward exactly the kind of compulsive, unexamined speech that the Stoics spent their lives trying to discipline away. And the damage is real. People have lost jobs, relationships, opportunities, and reputations because of things they typed in moments of reactive emotion, things they would never have said in person, things that felt justified in the moment and catastrophic in the morning. Seneca wrote, "Letters, or today we might say messages, that have never been sent have never caused regret. And the letters you delay sending rarely produce the regret of the ones you sent immediately." The practice here is simple but profoundly difficult. Before you post, before you reply, before you send the message, pause. Ask, does this need to exist? Does this serve anyone? Would I say this to someone's face? How will I feel about this tomorrow, in a year? Most of the time, the honest answer is no, it does not need to exist. You are relieving a pressure, performing for an audience, or trying to win a fight that has no prize worth winning. The Stoic practice on social media is not to delete your accounts and disappear. It is to become intentional. To speak when you have something worth saying. To stay silent when you are reacting rather than reflecting. To remember that your digital words are as real and as consequential as any word you have ever spoken out loud. Gossip, complaining, and the words that drain your power.
There are specific categories of speech that the Stoics identified as particularly toxic, not just useless, actively harmful to the person doing the speaking. The first is gossip.
Gossip feels good. There is a genuine neurological reward in talking about other people, especially when you are positioning yourself as insightful or morally superior by comparison. But the Stoics saw gossip for exactly what it is, a diversion from the only territory that is actually your business, which is your own character and choices. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Gossip almost never passes either test. It is rarely completely accurate, and it is never entirely necessary. But there is a deeper reason to avoid gossip, and it is purely practical. When you gossip about others, everyone listening knows, consciously or not, that you will gossip about them when they are not present. You mark yourself as someone who cannot be trusted with private information. You mark yourself as someone whose loyalty is situational. And that subtle knowledge, held by everyone around you, slowly but steadily erodes the trust and respect that your relationships depend on. The person who does not gossip is rare. They are also uniquely trustworthy. People bring them their real problems, their actual fears, their genuine selves, because they know this person will hold what they share with care. The second toxic category is complaining. Complaining is perhaps the most socially accepted form of speech poison in modern culture. We bond over complaints. We invite complaints. We feel like complaints are a form of honesty. We are just telling it like it is, we say. But the Stoics understood something important about complaining. It is a declaration of helplessness. Every complaint is an announcement that something outside of you has the power to disturb your inner state and that you have no adequate response to it. It is the language of someone who has surrendered their agency. And more practically, it changes nothing. Complaining about the weather does not change the weather. Complaining about your boss does not make your boss better. Complaining about the economy does not improve the economy. It only deepens your own sense of powerlessness and drains the energy of everyone around you. Marcus Aurelius, who had more to complain about than almost any human being in history, wars, betrayals, plagues, the death of children, never complained. His journals show a man who constantly turned difficulty back into a question of character. Not, why is this happening to me, but how do I respond to this with virtue? That reframe changes everything. It moves you from victim to agent, from someone things happen to someone who acts. The practice is this. For the next 30 days, catch every complaint before it leaves your mouth. You do not have to suppress it permanently, just pause. Notice it. Ask, is this useful? Is there an action I could take instead? And if there is no action to be taken, ask, can I simply accept this, the way the Stoics accepted what could not be changed, and redirect my attention toward what I can control? The discipline of thinking before speaking. We have talked about when not to speak. Now let us talk about how to speak better when speech is genuinely required. Because the Stoics were not mute. They were not monastics who had taken vows of silence. Seneca was one of the most prolific writers in Roman history. Marcus Aurelius was a statesman who gave speeches, issued edicts, negotiated treaties. Epictetus was a teacher whose entire life's work was the spoken word.
The difference was not that they spoke less. The difference was that every word they spoke had been, in some sense, considered. The Stoic practice before speaking is essentially this. Before the words leave your mouth, they pass through a set of questions. Is this true? Is this necessary? Is this the right moment? Will this serve the person I am speaking to, or only relieve something in me? Is this coming from my highest self, or from fear, ego, or reactivity? This does not need to be a formal process. With practice, it becomes automatic. A half-second pause, an internal check, a quiet verification that what you are about to say is what you actually mean to say. And when you begin to apply this, something remarkable happens. You become a more trustworthy person. Because what you say is measured, accurate, and intentional, people begin to notice that when you speak, it is worth listening. The quality of your words increases because the quantity decreases. There is no filler, no noise, no compulsive self-expression, just substance. Epictetus taught his students this. If you would not want someone to see you doing it, do not do it. Equally, if you would be uncomfortable having your words examined by a wise person, by your future self, by the people most affected by them, do not say them. Let wisdom be the editor of everything that passes through your lips. Learning to sit with silence, the inner practice. We have been talking primarily about external silence, the discipline of not speaking in conversation, in conflict, in digital spaces. But there is an inner dimension to this teaching that is perhaps even more important. Most people are not comfortable being alone with their own minds. This is one of the great unspoken crises of modern life. The moment there is no external stimulation, no phone, no music, no conversation, no show, a kind of internal noise rises up. Anxious thoughts, regrets, fears, an almost frantic search for distraction. The Stoics believed that the capacity to sit quietly in your own company was a mark of genuine self-possession. Seneca wrote that a person who cannot bear to be alone with themselves is, at some level, afraid of what they will find there. The practice of inner silence is essentially a practice of making peace with your own mind, of learning to observe your thoughts without being driven by them, of developing what the Stoics called apatheia, not apathy in the modern sense, but freedom from being controlled by reactive emotion. The ability to watch a feeling arise, acknowledge it, and choose whether to act on it or simply let it pass. This is why many Stoics practiced something that looks very much like what we would today call meditation. They would sit in quiet. They would review their day. They would examine their thoughts and feelings not with judgment, but with curiosity. They were doing maintenance on their inner world, the way a craftsman maintains their tools. And the result of this practice is that the inner noise gradually quiets. Not because the thoughts stop, but because you stop being at their mercy. You develop what Marcus Aurelius called an inner citadel, a place of stillness inside you that the chaos of the world cannot reach. From that place, silence is not uncomfortable. Silence is home. It is the baseline, the natural state of a well-ordered mind. When silence becomes cowardice.
Here we need to be careful, because there is a version of silence that the Stoics would absolutely not endorse, and it is important to name it clearly. Silence is not always strength. Sometimes silence is avoidance. Sometimes it is cowardice. Sometimes it is a way of protecting yourself at the expense of someone else. If you see an injustice and say nothing, that is not Stoic discipline. That is complicity. If someone in your life needs honest feedback and you withhold it to keep the peace, that is not wisdom. That is a failure of care. If you allow someone to be treated badly because speaking up would be uncomfortable, you are not practicing prosoch. You are practicing self-protection dressed up as virtue. The Stoics were fierce about this distinction. Cato was famous for speaking up at enormous personal cost when he believed something was wrong. Marcus Aurelius made difficult decisions and delivered hard truths throughout his reign, precisely because he understood that a leader who only says comfortable things is not a leader at all. The discipline of silence is about controlling reactive, impulsive, ego-driven speech. It is not about suppressing necessary truth. So the question is always, why am I staying silent? Is it because speaking would serve my ego rather than the situation? Or is it because I am afraid and my fear is silencing something that needs to be said? Those are completely different silences. One is wisdom. One is weakness.
And only honest self-examination, the practice of prosoch, can tell you which one you are in at any given moment. The long game, how silence builds your reputation over time. Let us zoom out and look at this over the long arc of a life. The Stoics were deeply interested in what we might call the long game. They thought in terms of decades, not moments. They asked not what will feel good now, but what will I be proud of when I look back from the end of my life? What kind of person am I building, one day at a time? And when you look at silence through that lens, it becomes one of the most powerful investments you can make in your own character and reputation. Reputation is built slowly and destroyed quickly. One careless sentence, one reactive outburst, one poorly timed opinion can undo years of carefully constructed trust. We all know this. We have all watched it happen to people, and many of us have experienced it ourselves. But the inverse is also true. Consistent, disciplined, thoughtful speech, the kind that is rare and valuable because it is never wasted, builds a reputation that compounds over time. People remember that you told them the truth when it would have been easier to flatter. They remember that you stayed calm when everyone else lost their composure. They remember that you kept a confidence. They remember that when you said you would do something, you did it without announcement or explanation. That kind of reputation does not get built in one conversation. It gets built in 1,000 small moments of choosing what not to say as much as what to say. And the beautiful irony is this: the person who speaks least often carries the most influence when they do speak, because every word has been earned. Every sentence carries the weight of all the unnecessary sentences that were never said. When they open their mouth, people stop and listen, not because they are the loudest, but because they are the most trusted. That is the Stoic long game. Not to win today's argument,
to build a life of such consistent character and integrity that you become someone whose word means something, whose silence means something, whose presence in a room changes the quality of what happens there. Let us get very concrete now, because philosophy without practice is just entertainment. Here are the actual Stoic exercises you can begin using immediately. The first exercise is the evening review. Every night before you sleep, sit quietly for 5 minutes and review your conversations from the day. Not to judge yourself, but to observe. Where did you speak wisely? Where did you say something you regret? Where did you miss an opportunity to listen more deeply? What were you trying to accomplish with your words, and did you accomplish it? This simple practice, done consistently, will transform the way you speak within weeks. The second exercise is the pre-speech pause. Before you respond in any significant conversation, not casual small talk, but anything that matters, take one deliberate breath. Just one. In the space of that breath, run the basic check. Is this true? Is this necessary? Is this the right moment? You will be amazed how many things you choose not to say. And you will be equally amazed at how much more precise and valuable the things you do say become. The third exercise is a 1-day silence fast. Once a month, choose a day where you speak only when genuinely necessary. No small talk, no complaining, no filling silence, just presence and observation. This is not antisocial. You can explain to people close to you what you are doing. But the experience of a day of genuine, intentional silence is disorienting in a profoundly useful way. You start to notice how much you usually say that you do not need to say. You start to notice how peaceful it is to simply observe without narrating. The fourth exercise is what I call the gossip audit. For 1 week, every time you are about to say something about someone who is not present, pause and ask, would I say this if they were standing here? Would I want them to know I said it? If the answer to either question is no,
Do not say it. Not because you are being moralistic, but because you are building the reputation of someone who can be trusted. And gossip is the fastest way to dismantle that. The fifth exercise is the complaint substitution. Every time you feel a complaint rising up about the weather, about traffic, about your circumstances, about other people, immediately substitute it with either an action or an acceptance. If you can do something about the thing you are complaining about, do it instead of complaining. If you cannot, practice the Stoic acceptance of what cannot be changed. Say to yourself, "This is outside my control." I release it. Then redirect your attention to what is inside your control. These are not complicated practices, but they are difficult ones, because they go against every instinct and cultural norm that surrounds you. The world will keep rewarding loud, reactive, compulsive speech. Your inbox and your feed will keep pulling you toward the hot take and the quick reaction. The practice is returning. Every time you get pulled out of discipline and say something you regret, you return. Without excessive self-criticism, without drama, just the quiet return to the practice. The Stoics called this constant returning the core of the philosophical life. You do not achieve silence once. You choose it again and again every single day. The mouth is extraordinary. It can build trust or destroy it. It can comfort or wound. It can make someone feel seen and valued, or it can make them feel dismissed and small. It can start wars and it can end them. The Stoics understood that the mouth, unmastered, is one of the most dangerous things a person carries. And mastered, truly, patiently, consistently mastered, it becomes one of the most powerful instruments of a life well lived. You will not master this overnight. No Stoic ever claimed that virtue was achieved quickly. Epictetus said the goal is progress, not perfection. Every day you pause before reacting is a day of progress. Every conversation where you listen more than you speak is a day of progress. Every moment where you hold a complaint and choose action instead, every time you catch a piece of gossip before it leaves your lips, every argument you choose not to win, that is progress. Zeno said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in proportion." Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Epictetus said, "First learn the meaning of what you say, and then speak." Seneca said, "Be slow of tongue and quick of eye." This is the teaching. It is 2,500 years old, and it has never been more relevant than it is right now in this loud, reactive, opinion-saturated world. Learn to keep your mouth shut. Not out of timidity, not out of fear, but out of the deep, settled confidence of someone who knows that their words carry weight and who has decided to make every single one of them worth the weight they carry. If something in this video landed for you, if you felt it somewhere deeper than just your mind, then do this one thing right now. Subscribe to this channel, hit the bell so you never miss what comes next.
Every week on the Stoic Mindset, we go deeper into the ancient teachings that are more urgent today than they have ever been. This is not passive content. This is an invitation to actually change the way you live. And the people who find this channel tend to stay, because what we are building here is not an audience. It is a community of people committed to the examined life. Subscribe now. The next lesson is already waiting for you.